Alrighty, Julie. So let's talk about AI, huge topic at the moment in our space, and language and the relationship between AI and language, but also your students' reflections on what they've discovered AI cannot do. So before we dive into what their insights are, can you just explain a bit about how did you get these insights?
Yeah. I've just been really curious about this because AI has been kind of like a more sudden thing, I think, over the years. And I just really wanted to assign a project where we really have to bring ourselves in, like making a little picture book, for instance, and then getting students to reflect on that process, because I know they're using AI anyway. So when did they use it? Why did they use it? Which parts still remain quite human and which parts maybe don't remain human anymore? I was just curious about it. So I put this assignment to them where, we have a subject on language. So these key concepts around foundational knowledge around language. And it seemed like a good way to understand, how first of all, demonstrate the knowledge about language. So all the things that we've been talking about in these episodes, but also to learn about, you have to use language in context, right? You're using language to do something. So, so make a picture book. Make a picture book about what you think language is. Okay. And you can choose any topic you like. So again, funds of knowledge. You can bring whatever knowledge you like, draw on it. But you have to show me that you have extended your knowledge by demonstrating the concepts that you have learned. So you have to make links. And to make that link, you have to write an essay, which is what the university requires, which is what schools will require. So I'm doing something that is, quite complex here, bringing these two things together. But in doing so, I feel like there are aspects here that's going to be really interesting in terms of us learning about what can still remain really human and what is something that, maybe the drawing on AI support is actually very helpful. So that's the context in which these were taken. And I went through, maybe 150 assignments. I looked through them. I understood that I was able to group them. Like how students are thinking about the kind of knowledge that is like uniquely human. And we'll talk about some of those things in the ones that I pulled out. But I also wanted to just pull out a few quotes that were really like quite interesting and really insightful from the students. So, again, like, I don't know if like maybe these all just were generated from AI. I have no idea. But I'm not a police. And I just think I don't come from a stance of like being skeptical about like if this is really yours or not. I just really think if it connects with me as a reader and makes me think and it makes me kind of like, that's a kind of an interesting way to think about something. It could have come from your first language and that you translated, but still your idea that's helping me to understand something new. And it could be a whole range of things. So I wasn't worried about that kind of thing, but I was really interested in the ways in which students were starting to think about maybe figurative language or metaphors to think about this work. So let's have a look. Let's have a look.
Yeah. So insight one here from one of your students was really about how AI produces surface fluency but lacks the reflective labor that creates coherence. And coherence comes from struggling through thinking. AI skips that struggle. Does this resonate with you as somebody that has published heaps of academic, papers and journals, and you've really had to wrestle with coherence?
Hugely. And this really scares me about students losing that. But I'm also thinking that academics are losing it too because they're using it a lot also. But it's different when students are still learning to analyze things and do stuff. Whereas I don't think academics are necessarily doing that. They're really, sometimes I think that it's actually enhancing what they can already do, but maybe would not have had the opportunity to expand their knowledge because we also, work very slowly. We're not getting advice from other people about how to analyze something at a deeper level, So I think AI, it can be very beneficial for some people who have a lot of knowledge about something already. And for those who are still learning, it's like robbing them of that opportunity to develop those cognitive tools. So I do think that that's 100%. But I was also listening to somebody and it really resonated with me. It's like when I used to do a lot of handwriting, because first of all, I'm a diarist.
Dear Diary, today I learned my first curse word.
So I like to write all my stuff. And when I write, there is something in the finger to the brain, that time that it takes, and also the feeling, the texture of writing something that lingers longer. And I noticed that when the computers start coming out and then I try to do journals like that, something about that experience, it didn't resonate the same way with me when I was writing the diaries, like every day by hand. By hand, you write it out. And apart from the fact that, you're getting all the stuff you want to get out, and it felt therapeutic. It felt really good. And also I felt like in my day-to-day life, I could think about that experience and go, I wrote about this 10 days ago. I'm here again, I remembered it inside my body, like that muscle memory. And then now, I try to do it on journals, forget it. It doesn't work for me.
No.
And there's nothing left in my body.
Empty.
So then I stopped doing that. And then for some years now, I have a PhD student who has only been giving me diaries, the yearly diaries every year. And she always gives me the same kind. And I have a way of, even though I have Outlook and everything, I can schedule, I have to do all of that digital stuff for work. But I always carry this diary around because not only for the planning, and I really still love to put the time and person and place all inside the diary physically, but also in the side, I like to write the diary, like just what I'm thinking. It's just small chunks. It's not like how I used to write a diary, but it's still something really nice to me about, and my handwriting is so bad, as you know, so I cannot read my own hand. I don't know,
It's true. She can't read.
Yeah, exactly. I cannot read. Nobody can. It's like a secret code. But it's still in my body because I wrote it.
Yeah.
And even if I can make out one word, I'm like, that feeling, completely, it just comes back to me.
Yeah.
Right.
And the thing with a lot of your work, we've worked together for so long now, and I would notice that what you would write on pages and on the margins, they were the messiest things, but then they would become the core of your next academic paper that you would publish on.
That's right.
And so there were certain incidents where I just remember you would write in your diary about the milk on placement incident and being caught like a baby.
Yes. That turned into a book.
That's right. And I think that's links to the second insight here from your students about, AI has no vulnerability, has no body, no vulnerability, no stakes. That the concept of embodied knowledge about, knowing from having a body from lived experience. This is your lived experience as you write and as you relive and as you recount what has happened to you.
That's so good. So in terms of text with the first one, that coherence aspect was something that the students picked up, even in their own struggles, because they're struggling, because they got to make the book.
Yeah.
If it was just writing the essay, I don't think they would struggle.
Yeah.
And then, as you point out, but it's not just that technical thing on the page, the print, but the embodied knowledge that's happening as they are doing that thing. So
that's just incredible. You can see there that it carries memories as you write. And your students' reflections are just Could it embed our authentic personal experience with nuanced emotions? Can it sense my trembling hesitation
That's it.
before pressing post? And yeah, I really resonated with that.
Yeah.
Like particularly anything before I post on my podcast platforms, I have a trembling hesitation. I'm like, do I really want to say this? Do I really want to highlight this from the podcast? Do I really want to use this language, science of learning? like there are so many questions around that. If I put the word inquiry, is somebody going to, attack me? Like there are so many like hesitations or moments that I think this is something that AI just cannot do. Like it has no stakes. It will just pump out whatever it can strip from your transcript. But if I am the person ultimately accountable for these words at the end of the day, there are high stakes for me, my reputation, who I am in the profession, my identity as a teacher, a professional. It's something that it just can't experience. So, no, I completely resonate with the embodied experience insight for sure.
Okay. Well, let's have a look at the next one where, AI is existentially empty. I think that's pretty interesting, isn't it? Does not have a human existence challenged by ideas, struggles, and questions. Human writing comes from a life.
This is interesting because yesterday, as I was going through to prepare for our episodes, I looked at your chart, your language trajectory chart, and then I thought, I'll just put this into AI because surely ChatGPT knows me so well right now. And so I said, put it into ChatGPT. I said, create me an image of my own journey through Vietnamese and my own competencies. And these are a few dot points of how I feel about my competency, but then give me a summary at the end. And then I copy and pasted your little transcript spiel and I popped it into ChatGPT. And then it came out with you didn't know how to do this. You felt deficit, like you were lacking in this because your grammar was very poor. Like it just went full on at me. But I was like, okay. It doesn't know how to situate it in my life. That is a very clear realization. And
although you could tell it to be nice, be gentle when you say it to me,
Yeah. But even some of the words that it spat out, I just felt like I couldn't resonate with. And I was like, that's when I know that it is essentially empty.
And this is where I was just thinking about Bakhtin's term, every word has a taste, it has a flavor, and taste and flavor, senses are such an interesting thing, right? Because, how if you've experienced kimchi in a certain place, certain way over certain periods of your life or whatever, you have a different kind of palate, from somebody else, who has had kimchi, in different times, places, and so on. And so, those words that we heard, they could all be fine words, but it has a certain kind of flavor to us. And you're just like, oh, yuck. What? No, I would never say such a thing, or even feel such a thing. So, I think that is quite good.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah. Okay, so let's have a look at another one, filtering through AI.
Right. So one of your students talks about how AI tools flatten the complexity of human thought and they replicate dominant norms. When I filter through AI, I give up the fluidity, beauty, and ornamentation that characterizes Spanish discourse. So in the student's words, what's lost is the voice, the fluidity, the beauty of and ornamentation of who you are, and the linguistic heritage that makes writing yours.
I mean, you have to have experienced that in order to be able to get. I don't know if AI wrote that, but I'm gonna guess it didn't. But you have to have had the experience to be able to pinpoint something as deep as that.
Yeah, and the confidence to know what you want to sound like.
Yeah,
and to push that aside and to say no, that does not sound like me. I want to sound like this.
And again, the funds of identity. Still matters here. Let's look at our last one.
The fertilizer metaphor.
Oh, I really like this.
AI is like fertilizer. It's helpful when soil is barren, but excessive fertilizer may drain nutrients and weaken the roots if overused. So this particular student would say, I was dazzled by its elegant sentences, yet ashamed because I knew they were not mine.
This is so raw, don't you think? Don't you think that like most people are feeling that?
Yeah.
I remember a long time ago, I used to have to chair these meetings where students plagiarized. And then they would come and they would have to give an account of what they did. And those days, you'd using Turnitin and you can know exactly where they got it from. These days, you cannot do that. So, if they say they didn't do it, they didn't do it. But then you got to like probe and all this. But in those days, you knew exactly. And the student just came up front and she said, yes, as you can see, taking it, from these places. And said, so why did you do this? You're a grad student. You should be able to do these things by yourself. And she said, I really loved the way she actually put it because she said, when I read the academics, language, and I read it in the articles or whatever, it sounds like beautiful butterflies that are flying around, and there's no way for me to capture all those like beautiful butterflies flying around in my own text. And so I'm borrowing those words for now. And I actually genuinely got it.
Get it.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's right.
Yeah.
It's like, come on,
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, that's first of all, it's a beautiful metaphor. And that's really how she thought. You think ChatGPT could come up with such a metaphor or such like a way of expressing it? So it really does come from the student, and yeah, I appreciate that. I just think it's this really still okay. So this is about, I think, symbolic competence, understanding not just what language says but what it does. So it's the identity work, the relational work, the strategic work. AI lacks this entirely, but I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier about AI can be a fertilizer for those who have quite a lot already, right? But it may be that it weakens the roots for those who have been growing, but then it's cut off now because you're just relying on AI. And so you're not developing stronger.
Yeah, that's
right.
right. Analogy,
This is why I thought when I first read it, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, for some people, it's going to be great. Other people, it's going to weaken the roots, right? That's and this particular student, I do know the student also, and she is, when you speak to her, first of all, she's very honest, and she's very very thoughtful. She's always thinking about such things. She would go into lectures, she would listen, take lots of notes, and then unbeknownst to any of us, although much later on I found this out, she told me, was that she would go home and record herself for like 10, 15 minutes. She'd have a little, not a script, but outlines. She'd put it, paste on her wall, and then she'd have a video in front of her, and she would just talk to the video about what she learned today in class, and then she would send it through her social media or whatever in China to share with her friends about what she was learning at the university. I just thought that was extraordinary. Like, how many students do that? And I thought at one stage she might have just been like, have a script and just read it out. But she sent me all of her bullet points, handwritten. I think, we're making all these assumptions that students are no longer thinking and not doing anything. No, those who care for meaning making, they are still doing the work, and they seem to know what it is in jeopardy if we continue to just let AI do all the work. So I'm just thinking, right, like how important it is for us to give students this opportunity to figure it out for themselves. Don't just preach to them about like, don't do this, or, declare what tool you use. And all of this is going back to the surveillance thing. And it's about like fear rather than actually just trying to help students to think about well, what parts can I just do by myself and I can do better? And really getting them to, and in the process of doing that, something that would be really lovely is if we could just get students to think about what are your multilingual resources, the special things that you have brought to make your book. Your book can only be made by you because you have a very particular kind of funds of knowledge and funds of identity. So can we add a special question explicitly at the end for them to articulate that? Because they will have to do the work first, and then they will need some time to think about, what did I bring that's unique to me? Not just unique to humans, but unique to me. And what are the strategic moves that I've made to do this? Because all students do have it. It's just that they're not thinking about that. And then so later on, you ask them, oh, this is such fantastic work. And like, what were the decision-making processes? They will tell you, but they only tell you in a general way. Yeah, I thought that looked nice there. That's why I did it. Well, actually, no. If you really got a snapshot of what they were doing at the time, they were probably wrestling with, like, should it be small? Should it be big? Should it go here? Should it be pink? Should it be blue? Like, they're thinking about all kinds of things. So if we were to even ask them, can you name me 3 things or even 2 things that were really like in terms of like meaning making, this was a strategic move for me because I really wanted to make meaning like this because this is who I am. Okay. That would be so interesting. And if I have 150 students in the room, if even one person came up with one of those, I would be able to write a whole book, not a paper, a whole book on here are the multilingual resources and strategies. Now, if as a teacher, I don't open up that space for them, when are they going to ever have an opportunity to reflect that deeply? Okay, but what I learned from these assignments last year is like they did it really well and the books are amazing. But the essays are still so-so. And I can tell that the essays, there's still a lot of AI use. I'm probably more for support, but still, there's a lot of reliance on it. So I can't really hear them as scholars. Okay, so that's still an issue. And one of the other things that I found was it's not so much a matter of your multilingual resources or strategies. At this level, what they are struggling with is making connections between the book, what I have to demonstrate in the book, and the essay, which is an analysis of the book. So making that connection is quite a hard thing for them, right? And if you are not able to do that, I'm not so sure that you're going to go deeper to then talk about what are my resources, my strategies, and how did I do this? And because you clearly don't know how to do these 2 things that well yet. So how can I even go even deeper, right? So it still goes back to, that's why I never think about language learning as just language, but it still goes back to literacy and like how to help students to build those cognitive skills like analyzing, arguing, recounting, like all of those things have to be taught explicitly. But as we said before, if you're teaching genre, and you're teaching like those kinds of skills, like in a rote, like just here's the model and just do it, then I don't think they're going to make those links. I think we really have to help them to, first of all, I need some content that I'm actually interested in analyzing. And if the teachers are just choosing things like, why is smoking a bad thing? I don't smoke. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So them doing the book, them analyzing that and giving them the tools right there to go like, in your analysis, this is the kind of analysis I'm looking for. So make these examples really apparent. Like you got to point it out to them. The worksheet should be about that they could go back to. I think that's the thing I've learned from last year. Rolling all this out and understanding, okay, so actually this is where my students are. And I'm asking them to do something so much deeper when really I have to help them to make these connections. So this year, I've been revamping this and I want to keep the book because they make such beautiful books. And it really shows their funds of knowledge and identity. And it makes total sense in linking it up with the essay. But I need to help them, give them more tips and the toolkit, as I'm saying. Like grammar is a resource for meaning making. So I need to give you the resources of like, what do I mean by analysis? Connections between this and this. This is what I'm hoping to see. And that should give the student a little bit more insight. And that's where we need to start. Then I want to ask them more about and what did you notice about what makes it uniquely human? Also, what makes it uniquely you?
Big question.
So this is the level of a graduate study, I think, assignment. That is what we expect, that kind of quality. And it is rich. And you said yourself, like you're looking at your students' work, it's all AI generated. It's dull. Why are you putting your eyeballs on it? Why are they doing it? Everybody they're making it with AI. You might be marking it with AI. Well, what's the point of all of this? Whereas for me, reading their books, I genuinely want to read. I can't wait until they make. And then when they ask for extensions, I'm like, no, I want to read it now. So how can we bring joy back into our students' lives to write and to think and to learn and to expand? Because these are really hard things to do, making connections between different genres and analyzing, going deep, something that we don't normally need to do every day. And then getting them to like take their stance, their position. So this is where it's taken me many, many years to figure it out myself too, but I'm like really excited about this.